Bienvenidos, bienvenidas. Estamos en Mallorca. We are in Mallorca, the largest of the Balearic Islands, with its turbulent history and its incredible diversity and its unique landscape. We're going to tell you a little bit about the history and invite you to join us as we tour this beautiful island. But first, this is Latina Literati.
If you enjoy amazing stories, wonderful people from past and present, and great books, then this is the channel for you. Mallorca is the largest of the Spanish archipelago in the Mediterranean, along with Menorca and Ibiza and Formentera. Mallorca is a very ancient land, and it has had a turbulent history, a very diverse population, and unique landscape. It has a beautiful mountain range in the north, Tramuntana. Mallorca, as I mentioned, is an ancient land. The people who live there are thought to have first arrived about 8,000 years ago. In fact, recently a 3,000-year-old sword was found. And so we know that for thousands and thousands of years, BC, this beautiful island was inhabited. It is thought that the Celts came from Spain and from France to first inhabit the island of Mallorca during the time of the Iron Age, or even before. And the settlements, or the areas where the original people lived, are called taliots. And taliot is really interesting. They are both circular and square fortifications, and they're found throughout Mallorca and Menorca. And there's only one way in and one way out. So you really feel like it's a very fortified defense mini tower. And in fact, talayota comes from the Catalan interpretation of the Arabic atalaya, which means fortress. You can see all of the different ways that just one word expresses the history of the island of Mallorca. There's a magnificent statue of a taliot woman, Nuradena, on the waterfront in Mallorca, and it was said that she was a seer and a priestess or a leader of the taliots who fatefully fell in love with a Greek and saved him because he had been condemned to death. And she, of course, when it's found out, is then condemned to death. So it is said that she awaits her loved one on the seashore for him to return. It's a beautiful statue. Nice love story. The Phoenicians arrived in the 8th century from what is now Lebanon and established colonies not just throughout the Balearic Islands, Mallorca, Menorca, Ibiza, Formentera, but also throughout Spain. The great princess Elisa, who leaves what is now Lebanon, Phoenician, the city that she establishes, Carthage in modern-day Tunisia, would have most of the Mediterranean, the most important trade routes, the most affluent city of the Mediterranean in the time before the Roman Empire. Carthage was called the Lion of Africa, and it is the famous brothers, the Barca brothers, including Hannibal Barca, that decide to take on Rome, who is challenging their dominance in the Mediterranean. And Hannibal Barca takes elephants through the Alps and meets his defeat in Italy, and that settles it, that Carthage, in fact, in the Roman Senate, there would be speeches that would say, Carthago delenda est, which meant Carthage must be destroyed. And when Carthage is eventually destroyed by Rome, they even salt the earth so that nothing will grow. But there are still some vestiges. But I feel like Carthage deserves its own video. On to Mallorca and the history. So The Carthaginians, Carthage has all of North Africa, all of Mediterranean Spain, and then the Romans take over. It's quite interesting because Spain was known by the Carthaginians and then by the Romans as the place of rabbits. And if you see the menus in Spain, there are a lot of rabbit dishes. So Spain was known as the land of rabbits and important in the Mediterranean trade routes. In 707, North Africans begin their incursions into the Balearic Islands, and in 907, Isam al-Halan conquers the Balearic Islands and folds them into the Emirate of Cordoba. So you'll recall that this is at the height of the Islamic Empire. Spain is part of the Islamic Empire, and you have different emirates. So you have Granada, Al-Andalus is the greater area. You have Cordoba, and so the Balearic Islands are part of the Emirate of Cordoba. And with that comes a technology for irrigation. Really interesting, because that's also when citrus is introduced. Citrus is originally from the Middle East, whether it's lemon or oranges, and it is spread throughout the Mediterranean with the Islamic conquest of the Mediterranean. So you have a lot of building going on. There are at least 5 public baths. They're now called the Baños Árabes. They're called the Arab baths, and there's only one left. And so here you see parts of what is left. You can tell that it was really beautiful in its day, that there were rooms in which you would bathe, and you would have a hot room and a cold room. As you know, to the Islamic peoples, water is sacred. The bath is a ritual. So it's something that is done in a manner that one honors the process and the water that is used there. So it's quite interesting. Beautiful garden. There was even a water wheel before there. So interesting to see what is left of this tradition of what in modern day North Africa is called hammam, traditional baths, public bathhouses. There are several Moorish leaders as part of the Caliphate of Cordoba over the Balearic Islands over the next 100 years. And Abu Yahya is the last Moorish leader. The King of Aragon will conquer the Balearic Islands and will make it part of his kingdom. So it's quite interesting. Spain has a lot of tumultuous politics going on over the next centuries. And it's really in the 1700s, really early on, that the Balearic Islands are recognized as an autonomous area, and they are their own province. Since the 1700s, that's a long time. It's also interesting that the Catalan culture is absolutely predominant here. So Catalan is a language that's kind of a combination of French and Italian and Spanish, and it's spoken in Catalonia, in the Balearic Islands, and in Valencia. And so you hear in the streets lots of languages. Hear Catalan in Mallorca as well. It would actually be an Austrian Archduke Ludwig Salvator who would arrive in the 1800s to Mallorca and catalog the flora and fauna, the unique flora and fauna of Mallorca. And he would actually buy huge swaths of land to protect the areas, wanted to preserve them for later generations. So lots of the hiking trails in the mountains are named after him. The island has attracted tourists and writers and well-known people for hundreds of years. Frédéric Chopin lived here with Georges Sand for several years, and he composed his preludes here, and she wrote a book about Mallorca, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later. The great Nicaraguan poet Rubén Darío came to Mallorca. He wrote poems here. He also wrote a novel, El Oro de Mallorca, The Gold of Mallorca. Agatha Christie also was in Mallorca and wrote a book, and we'll talk about that later as well. Jorge Luis Borges and the Nobel Prize laureate Camilo José Cela also came to Mallorca to rest and to write. So this place has been a magnet for celebrities and for all sorts of people for many, many years. In fact, it is a major tourist destination. 50 million tourists will pass through Mallorca. It's pretty amazing. And everywhere you go, you see that the economy definitely is focused on tourism. There are tours everywhere, every day in multiple languages. And you can see that the economy and the people rely on tourism. The The most notable building in Palma de Mallorca is the cathedral. It's Gothic in style, and it has flying buttresses, and it's just interesting because everything is made of this kind of, I want to say it's a beautiful color stone, and it's a warm orange yellow stone, which allows it to be cooler inside when it's so warm. And when we arrived, it was very, very warm. And then we had some rain and it cooled off. So it was better. We had the ability to join a tour and get to see the Caves of the Dragon, Cuevas de Drag. So we saw that very beautiful place where you walk through, and stalagmites just have stunning views. And there's also the largest underground lake as we walk through these stalagmites through the path. And then beautiful presentation of music, Vivaldi, Baccarol. And then you can leave on a little boat or you can walk out. We decided to leave on the boat, so it was really beautiful to see how the stalagmites are just backlit in these caves. It's really worthwhile if you come to Mallorca and have a chance to do that. Mallorca is essentially an island known for its beaches, and there are very beautiful beaches and coves to visit, so you definitely want to do that. There's a lot to do here, and I think that we just got a taste of the island, and we'll definitely be back to enjoy more. And now for my favorite part of the video, the book recommendations. So all of these books have to do with Mallorca. They're set in Mallorca, so I thought it would be interesting to share kind of Mallorcan literature with you. The first book is called The Devil's Horn, and it's by Anna Nichols. You meet the heroine, who is someone to solve mysteries. Her name is Isabel Flores Montserrat, and she has a mystery to solve in Mallorca. As always, we encourage you to check out your local libraries and your local booksellers. We always want to support our local small businesses. They're the backbone of our economies. They're our neighbors. And if perchance those are not available to you, we always include links in the description box below so that you can purchase these books from independent booksellers online. The next book is Death in Deia. And it's a classic murder mystery. A British millionaire dies. One of his daughters receives her inheritance and she disappears in Mallorca, and one of his friends decides to go look for her and also disappears. So there you have it. Classic murder mystery. What's going to happen? You'll have to read the book to find out. So highly recommend that book as well. The third book is, of course, George Sand's book, and it's a travelogue. It's about her experience in Mallorca. And of course, she is the muse, and she accompanies Frédéric Chopin in the years that he's here for his health, but also he is writing music. The book is called Winter in Mallorca. It's autobiographical, and it's a travelogue from the 1840s. So fascinating to learn about Mallorca at that time from the perspective of the great writer George Sand. Suffice to say, if you love beautiful descriptions, you'll enjoy the book because it gives beautiful descriptions of different parts of the island and the activities and what the island was like during that time. So highly recommended. And of course, George Sand is a fabulous writer. So thank you so much for joining us on this joint journey, for coming to the end of the video. We would love you to subscribe to Latina Literati. We were ever inching forward to 1,000 subscribers, so it'd be great to get there. Thank you so much for being a part of the community, and we would love to hear from you. What are you reading this summer? What books are you enjoying? What would you like us to talk about? We have made several videos suggested by our viewers, by members of the community, and I love to do that. I love to do the research and share that with you. So as always, mucho cariño, mucho salud y mucho amor. Gracias.